Libra, the sign closest to God. Discover the celestial mystery of this sign. Look at the entire zodiac and tell me, which sign doesn't have life? It's not an animal, it's not a human being, it's not a creature with instinct or blood. It's an object, an instrument, a scale. And that's the only non-living symbol in the entire zodiac, and it represents you. Think about it for a second. While all the other signs were associated with beings that exist, that breathe, that are thirsty and fearful and desirous, Libra was associated with a function, a mechanism, a principle. The oldest civilizations in the world, Egyptians, Greeks, Babylonians, looked to that region of the sky and agreed, without ever having met, that there lay the symbol of divine judgment, of cosmic justice, of the exact weight of things. It's not an accident. It's not poetry. This means that if you were born under Libra, you weren't just born with personality traits. You were born carrying a sacred function. And this function has a beauty that goes far beyond what any astrological profile has ever shown you. But it also has a weight that will finally be named in this video. You will understand why your indecisiveness is not a weakness, why your search for harmony sometimes exhausts you, why you feel injustice in your body before you can prove it logically, and why Libra, of all 12 signs, is the one that carries the oldest memory of how the universe should work. By the end of this video, something inside you will make sense in a way it never has before. And here's the first thing no one ever told you about your sign. You're not just someone who appreciates balance. You're someone who was shaped to feel the moral weight of things, to detect when something isn't right before any logic can prove it, to weigh the human heart, that of others and your own, with a precision that sometimes seems almost supernatural. But carrying a divine function in a human body comes at a price. And that's where Libra's story begins to feel disturbingly real. Think of a compass. It doesn't choose where it points. It doesn't decide that north is to the left today because it would be more convenient. It simply senses. The magnetic field exists, and it responds to it, even before anyone looks at it, even before anyone needs direction. Libra works like that. There's something in you that detects imbalance before you can name what's wrong. You walk into a room and feel the tension before a single word is spoken. You overhear a conversation, and something in you already knows, has already weighed it, has already reached a conclusion that your rational mind will take another 10 minutes to reach. This is not oversensitivity. This is the instrument functioning. This is the scale doing what a scale does. But then comes the question no one asks. If you are an instrument of cosmic precision, why do you seem so human in pain? Why does indecision paralyze you? Why does the search for harmony sometimes turn into silent exhaustion? Why does the sign made to weigh everything seem so often ungrounded? And this is where the answer begins to emerge, but not yet. Before that, you need to understand what happens when a divine instrument is placed within a human life, because that's exactly what's happening to you right now. You're processing something you've felt for years, but never had a name for. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose. When I understood that Libra is not just a sign, but a sacred function embodied, this book helped me understand what to do with that. It doesn't talk about Libra as a profile. It talks about Libra as destiny, as a path that has direction, that has purpose, that has a specific way of developing the ability to carry the weight of balance without getting lost in it. It's a mental posture, a tool for those who have felt the pressure of being the sign that weighs everything and finally want to learn to weigh themselves as well. You are in that moment right now, still processing, with that active discomfort, that feeling of recognition that doesn't quite know where to go. This is the exact moment to act, not after the video. Now, while the perception is still sharp, The link is in the first pinned comment, but be aware this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. And before we continue, tell me in the comments, have you ever felt like you could detect injustice or imbalance in a situation before anyone around you noticed? When was the last time that happened? Leave it below. Returning to the thread, the instrument within human life. Libra's indecisiveness is perhaps the most discussed and least understood trait of the sign. People talk about it as if it were a character flaw, as if Libra simply had no opinion or lacked the courage to take sides. But when you understand that Libra was built to think before judging, indecisiveness takes on a completely different meaning. Think of a judge, a good judge, one who truly takes the process seriously. He doesn't pronounce sentence in the first session. He listens to all sides. He considers mitigating circumstances. He knows that every decision has real consequences for real human beings, and that rushing judgment is a form of injustice. Libra's indecision is not hesitation. It's ethics. It's the instinctive refusal to close your eyes to complexity when you know, from a very deep place, that the truth has more layers than what is being shown now. The problem is that human life doesn't have the time of eternity. Human life has deadlines. It has pressure. There are people who say, decide quickly, without knowing that for Libra, deciding quickly is betraying their own principle. It's pronouncing a sentence without having heard all the witnesses. And this creates a conflict that Libra lives in silence almost every day, the conflict between the speed of the world and the sacred rhythm of judgment. But there's something even deeper than that, something that most Librans feel but rarely admit to themselves. And this is where the story really starts to weigh on them. There's a pattern in Libra that forms early, sometimes in childhood, sometimes in the first significant relationships, where the pursuit of harmony ceases to be a gift and becomes a disguise, where balancing others becomes a way of avoiding looking at one's own imbalance, where impeccable diplomacy hides a truth that Libra doesn't want to face, that they themselves have been leaning too far to one side for longer than they want to admit. Imagine a bridge, those old stone bridges that cross rivers. They were built to bear weight. That's their function. They distribute the load of everyone who crosses them, carts, people, all the time, and they hold up, silently, patiently, without complaining. But nobody stops in the middle of the bridge to ask how much the bridge itself weighs. Nobody considers that the structure that supports everything also has pressure points, also has cracks that form over time, also has a limit that, if exceeded, will collapse. And this touched on something you've carried for a long time, that feeling of holding everything together while no one asks how you are, so what comes next will make even more sense. But first, I need to tell you something. The digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose, has an entire chapter dedicated precisely to this. Libra's pattern of self-erasure, the difference between balancing by vocation and balancing by fear. How to develop the ability to feel your own weight and to redistribute the load in a way that doesn't destroy you from the inside. For Libra, this is no ordinary lesson. It's the center of everything, because a precision instrument that ignores its own calibration ends up measuring incorrectly, and you weren't made to measure incorrectly. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. The bridge has a limit that, if crossed, doesn't give a warning word. It simply begins to give way from the inside out, in ways that those crossing it don't see. Libra knows what that's like. They know what it's like to wake up one day and realize they've distributed balance to everyone around them and received none for themselves. They know what it's like to smile during a negotiation while something inside is tilted too much. They know what it's like to be perceived as light, as harmonious, as resolved, when in reality they are simply managing their own performance very well. And this is where the Libra paradox reaches its most disturbing point, because the more refined Libra's perception, the closer to the divine in sensitivity, the more painful the experience of living in a world that systematically fails the principle of justice. Libra doesn't suffer injustices in the same way other signs do. Other signs are indignant, react, overcome. Libra feels injustice in a more visceral, more physical way, almost like a pain in the body. Because for Libra, injustice is not just a moral problem, it's a violation of the fundamental law of the universe. It's as if someone had placed the wrong weight on the scale it was made to calibrate. Think of a precision instrument, a seismograph, for example. That piece of equipment that's in seismic laboratories and detects movements in the Earth's crust, movements so small that no human being could feel them. It was calibrated for that. That's exactly what it does. But now imagine placing that seismograph in the center of a large city, with heavy traffic, with roadworks, with the subway running underneath. The device doesn't stop working. In fact, it works with total precision. It's recording everything. The problem is that now it's impossible to distinguish the signal from the noise, and the device, which was made to capture the subtle, is being overloaded by the coarse. This is how Libra lives in an unbalanced world, not with a defect, with an excess of real perception in an environment that wasn't built for it. Libra's hypersensitivity, the kind that sometimes seems like weakness, that sometimes results in exhaustion, that makes Libra avoid conflict in a way that seems almost irrational to outsiders, is not a problem to be corrected. It is proof that the instrument is working. It is evidence that there is a form of perception there that the world does not yet know how to use, honor, or protect adequately. Understanding this can completely change the relationship Libra has with themselves. Stop treating their own sensitivity as a flaw and start treating it for what it is, an antenna calibrated to capture what others cannot. The digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose, speaks directly about how Libra can learn to protect and direct this perception without extinguishing it, without becoming dulled, without disconnecting from the gift to survive the noise. For those born with the function of balancing, learning to modulate their own frequency is not an option. It is the path back to oneself. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. And now that this paradox has been named, something is beginning to unfold. Because there is a gift in Libra that goes completely unnoticed, even by Libra themselves. It's not diplomacy, it's not charm, it's not even refined aesthetics, although that is real and powerful. Libra's rarest gift is the ability to build bridges between worlds that don't communicate. Not physical bridges, conceptual bridges, emotional bridges. Bridges between people who have opposing beliefs and who, without a cosmic mediator in between, would never find common ground. Libra can hear two irreconcilable sides and find, in that space between them, something true for both. This is not a social skill, this is a structural perception. It is the ability to see pattern where others see chaos, to find symmetry where others see contradiction. Think of a translator. Not one who simply swaps words from one language to another, but that rare translator who manages to convey the spirit of a text, the emotional nuance, the unspoken. One who understands that every language has a particular way of structuring reality, and that true translation is entering two worlds at the same time. Libra does this in human relationships. Enters both worlds simultaneously, speaks both languages fluently. But there's something this translator often does that he shouldn't. He adapts so much, learns both languages so well, that sometimes he forgets which language he himself thinks in. He starts to believe he doesn't have a native language, that he's made for adaptation, that his identity is to be a bridge. and then he confuses the ability to translate with the obligation to always bend. Libra does this, does it with such elegance that others rarely notice, and Libra themselves rarely notice, until the day when exhaustion speaks louder than performance, until the day when the bridge that has always supported everything announces, in silent and sometimes dramatic ways, that it too has its own weight. This is perhaps the most important self-awareness Libra can gain, that the greatest task is not balancing others. It's learning to recognize, name, and honor one's own weight, and that this is not selfishness. It's a prerequisite for the instrument to continue functioning. The digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose, was written precisely for this moment. For Librans who have reached the point of recognizing both gift and pain simultaneously, and who need a compass, not to find the balance of others, but to find their own north. For those who have always known how to weigh the world, but are still learning to weigh themselves. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. And then we arrive at the point where everything converges. You are not indecisive. You are precise. You are not superficial. You read the world through beauty because beauty is the language that harmony uses to manifest itself on the visible plane. You are not weak when you avoid conflict. You are someone who feels the true cost of conflict on a level that most people cannot access, and therefore tries to find the path where no one needs to lose. For Libra, beauty has never been vanity. It's a diagnosis. When Libra enters a space and something seems aesthetically wrong, what's being felt isn't personal preference. It's the perception that the environment is communicating something out of balance. When Libra refuses to stay in relationships that seem ugly on the inside, even when everything seems to work on the outside, it's not a whim. It's the instrument identifying a dissonant frequency that ordinary eyes don't see. A musician with perfect pitch hears a discordant note in a packed concert while everyone around is applauding. He's not being difficult. He's not inventing problems. He's hearing something real that others haven't yet perceived. The gift is real. The weight of carrying that gift is also real. And here, near the end, it's necessary to say something that perhaps no one has said to you before with this clarity. You were made for a role that no human being can fulfill alone. The divine scale you carry is real, but it was designed for a context where time is limited, where truth always emerges, where justice always prevails. You brought this instrument to a world with impossible deadlines, incomplete truths, and structural injustices, and you tried to make it work no matter what, every day, with elegance, with harmony, with that smile that holds more than it shows. This is not weakness. This is one of the bravest ways to exist that I know. But a Libra at peace, a Libra that has found its way back to itself, is not one that has finally managed to balance everything around it. It is one that has learned that the scales can also oscillate. That oscillation is not failure, that each movement, each weighing, each moment of imbalance followed by rebalancing, this is the sacred rhythm of the sign. Not perfect static balance, conscious movement, purposeful oscillation. Libra is the sign closest to God, not because it is perfect, but because it carries within an imperfect human life the memory of how things should be. And this memory is simultaneously the greatest burden and the greatest gift anyone can bring to the world. You feel the weight of things before any logic proves they weigh anything. You detect dissonance before any proof announces it. You seek balance not because you are naive about chaos, but because you know, in a place that precedes words, that balance is possible, that harmony is real, that the world can be weighed justly. This is not an illusion, this is a calling. And Libra's task, its true, profound, and sometimes painful task, is not to fix the world. It is to continue being what it is, the instrument that feels, that weighs, that seeks the truth, without destroying itself in the process. It is to learn to respect its own limits without abandoning its own function. It is to understand that you can fluctuate and still be sacred. That you can be unbalanced for a moment and still be the sign of balance. A scale doesn't need to be static to remain a scale. It needs to keep weighing, keep searching, keep feeling. And you, Libra, have been doing this your whole life, in ways that almost no one has seen, in ways that you yourself have rarely recognized as the act of spiritual courage that it is. Now you see.